Hi everybody, in today's tutorial we're going to be looking at how Java allows us to create arrays of strings. Okay, we've already looked at arrays of numbers. Today we're going to have a quick look at arrays of strings. Well, let's start just by looking at a string. This is a string variable. I've called it name and I've already assigned it some data, Jimmy. And this is really what it looks like in the background when Java programs run. We're creating a small pointer variable called name, and it points to some data which is stored in memory, and with that it's also pointing to the methods that we can now use with string variables. Okay, so just to make that a little bit clearer, some string methods are we have the length method, which will tell us the length of a string. We have the toUpperCase method, which will convert every character in a string to uppercase. Conversely, we have the toLowerCase method, which will convert every character to lowercase. There's also the equals method that allows us to compare strings. So just again to give you an idea of what's going on there, let's make another string variable. I'll call this one name2, and I'm going to call this one Sally. Okay, so let's just set up what that's looking like in memory. So this is going to be name2, and here we've got not Jimmy anymore, we've got Sally. So in my Java program I have two strings. Both of them have been assigned some data, and of course because they're strings and because we're using Java, both of them have access to string methods, and these are some of the string methods. So what I can do is create a little Boolean expression. If name dot equals name2, then I will do something. Okay, so this is how the equals method works in Java. I could take that away, name2, and I could say if name equals Harry, we will do something. Okay, so because these are both string variables, we have access to string methods. Let me just point out another little fact about strings. If I do this in Java, string name3 is equal to name2. String name3 is equal to name2. This is what happens in Java. We create another little pointer variable. This one is called name3, and it points to exactly the same string that name2 points to, because we're saying name3 is equal to name2. All it means is name3 is now pointing to the same string data as name2. And if I say this, let's just make another one. String name2, sorry, name is equal to name3. Okay, this is where it starts to get a bit complicated. If we say that name is equal to name3, this is no longer going to point to this data. Name is now going to point to this data, because name equals name3, name equals name3. So they're all pointing to the same data and methods. So what happens to this? Well, let's have a look at what happens to that. This is what happens. It is destroyed. It disappears. Java's garbage collector will come along and say, nobody is pointing at you anymore, you are gone forever. So be very careful with how you deal with data when they're strings, because it's quite easy to lose a string forever. Alright, let's move on very quickly. How much of this do I want to get rid of? Not all of it maybe, but some of it. Give me a moment while I practice my Adobe Illustrator skills. Brilliant. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just... What am I going to do? Control X. Bye-bye. Thank you very much. Okay. Now let's look at a string array. I'm going to make a string array and just going to call it names. And that's equal to a new string array of how many elements? Well, let's give it 5 elements. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new pointer called names. There it is. It points to a string array. And this string array has 5 elements. So let's just stick that in there. Let's change the color of that a little bit so it's a bit nicer. Okay. And we're just going to drag out 5 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? So here we have a string array pointer called names, which points to 5 strings. These are strings. And these strings are stored in an array called names. But make no doubt about it, this is a string, this is a string, this is a string, this is a string, and this is a string. Okay? This one is numbered in the array. This is 0. And this is 1. And this is 2. Is there any quick way to do this? I'm not sure that there is. So we'll just do it the dirty way. There we go. So here we have a string array pointer called names, and it points to an array of strings. There's a string. This is 0 in the array. There's a string, 1 in the array, 2, 3, and 4. So these numbers here are called indexes. These are indexes, and they allow us to reference the elements of the array. Now what I mean by that is I can now do this in my Java program. Names 0 is equal to Billy. And names 1 is equal to Sally. And names 2 is equal to Jilly. Why is everything ending in ly? What's going on? And names 3. Can anybody think of another lly? Folly. Okay. Never heard of that one before, but it doesn't matter. And the final one, names 4. I've got to do this again. I've got to think of another one. Is, of course, Silly. Silly? Is that really a name? Anyway, I've set up, at this point here, a pointer to a string array. These strings are empty. I have not assigned any data to them. They are empty. But as soon as I do this, I am assigning data to this string. And this one becomes Billy. And if we just drag down some of these and fill them out so that it makes sense. Sally, Jilly, Folly, and of course our good friend Silly. So we have now created a string array with 5 elements. We have assigned data to each of those elements, and we can access the elements because each element has a unique index. Okay? And that's how string arrays work. So what we can do now, for example, in a for loop, is say for int I is equal to 0, I is less than 5, I plus plus. And we'll do something in here. Now what I'm going to do is find out if any of the people in the array are my good friend Golly. Okay? So if names I dot equals Golly, then I will do something. Not sure what I'm going to do yet, but maybe print out a message, hello Golly, nice to see you, I don't know. So what this loop will do here, this for loop, remember I starts at 0. So if names 0, well there's names 0, yep. If names 0 equals Golly, no, we're not going to be doing that. If names, and then we've got of course I plus plus. So if names 1, well there's names 1, equals Golly, well it doesn't, it's Sally, etc, etc, etc. Do you see how the loop works? So challenge for you, if you can figure out this, we're going to be using the length method. Create an array of 5 names. So it's going to be a string array. Print the name of the person with the longest name. And again, I'll just give you a hint, you're probably going to use in your program the length method. Best of luck with that one.